Hola everyone, welcome to Open Hybrid, coming to you from Chari Executive Suite. I'm Rhina Valentin, your hosting Café con Leche every Friday. Here's what's coming up in today's show. Leading things off, we continue sharing the many artistic events honoring the Evelina Antonetty Centennial Celebration when we speak to Bronx Music Heritage Center's Artistic Director, Elena Martinez, and world-renowned photographer and grandson of Evelina, Joe Conzo Jr., as they discuss Evelina's role in the protest against the racially insensitive 1980s film Fort Apache The Bronx. Then we'll be joined by Bronx Fashion Week founder and CEO Flora Montes to discuss this year's stylish events happening at this year's Bronx Fashion Week as a contribution to Hispanic Latinx Heritage Month. Later on in the show, Bobby C brings us an up-to-date with the latest headlines in the world of sports. And lastly, this week's Open Artist Spotlight shines on spoken word artist and Poetic Black Gurl owner Andrea Augustus with a performance at the end of the show. So sit back y prepárate. All this and more is headed your way because now we are officially open. Hey everyone, welcome to Open Hybrid. I'm Rhina Valentin, your hosting Café con Leche for the next hour, coming to you from a Chari Executive Suite, inviting you to get social with us online. That is, tweet us and follow us on Instagram at BronxNet TV and like us on Facebook at Open BronxNet Television. And of course, while you're there, don't forget, follow moi on Twitter, FB, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Insta Stories at Rhina Valentin. So as we continue to share upcoming events honoring the life, work, and leadership of activist and founder of the United Bronx Parents, Evelina Antonetty, and what would have been Evelina's 100th birthday, the Evelina Centennial Celebration is scheduled to feature concerts, art, exhibitions, music, and much more across the city and Puerto Rico. And today we're going to discuss the Bronx Music Heritage's presentation of Evelina's protest against the film Fort Apache The Bronx, a 1980 crime drama film that follows a police officer as he works in the South Bronx and what is deemed to be the most dangerous location. The film brought about protests from residents for its anti-Latino, Black, and Indigenous settlements. So this program will honor Evelina's contributions to the Fort Apache's protests. And joining us to share more about the film screening and panel is a Bronx Museum Heritage Center's co-artistic director, Elena Martinez, and world-renowned photographer and grandson of Evelina Antonetty, Joe Conzo Jr.
Hi, Rhina.
You guys are laughing. It's like, and the segment is over, right? Well, I'm trying to inform everybody as best as I possibly can so they know what they're getting into. And thank you both for taking the time to be here with us. As you know, I'm a fan of both of you. So I'm really excited to dive into this topic of even why you chose to curate it as such, Elena.
So I've always been interested in the Fort Apache movie. For, maybe not all the popular reasons. I remember seeing it as a kid. My family's from that neighborhood. So I remember seeing it as a kid and people were like, oh yeah, I recognize that spot. I recognize that spot. I always knew, even from a little kid, that it was problematic. Probably didn't know why because I was young. But now working at the Bronx Music Heritage Center, it was also of interest to me that it was literally filmed right out. The opening shot of that film is steps away from the front door of the Bronx Music Heritage Center. So it's like right in the neighborhood where we work. So it's like, okay, that's this, the Fort Apache and some other images from that era, the images of Carter and Reagan walking through Charlotte Street, the fires, Howard Cosell talking about the fires during the Yankee game, all kind of contribute to this visual that kind of still remains for the Bronx for a long time, that we have this reputation because there's all these visuals from that era out that sort of, give this reputation that I think we're slowly shedding, hopefully, in the Bronx. And then the other thing too, which always really kind of freaked me out a little bit when I found this out, is that Puerto Rico in the Spanish-American War, General Miles is the army officer that like goes into Guanica and sort of like takes over the island of Puerto Rico. But General Miles also fought the Apache out west in the Indian Wars out west. And so there's this connection between sort of like the settling and the displacement of the indigenous communities out west and the takeover of Puerto Rico and this idea of America building empire and colonialism. And then it all kinds of ravels together and comes together in this Fort Apache, the movie, and takes place in the Bronx with another brown community and Puerto Rican communities. And so I just feel like all this stuff came together, and I would love to talk about these connections and make these connections. And then we always wanted to do this event. The pandemic happened, but then the Evelina 100 celebration came in, and Evelina's story is so entwined with the protest as well, taking a lead in the protest of this film. And I think Joe can speak to that. And so I think it was just the perfect timing to talk about the story of colonialism in indigenous communities, Puerto Rican community, and then also bringing into, that was Evelina's legacy too. Her work encompassed so much, and also working on these issues as well.
Wonderful. And I forgot to mention that, Elena Martinez is our folklorist. So everything out of her mouth is the history of everything that's related and unrelated that you may not even know. So there you go. We just got educated. And so then now we have Joe Conzo Jr., who is a world-renowned photographer, but, the New York Times heralded him the man who took hip-hop's baby pictures. However, we're going to be showing images of him. I don't even know how old you must have been during these protests. I mean, were you born with a camera in your hand?
No, Rhina, almost born with a camera in my hand. So I'm known for my hip hop photography, but that's just one hat that I was wearing at the time. And when I wasn't taking pictures of my hip hop brothers and sisters at the time, I'm hanging out with my grandmother during these protests in the Bronx, in New York City, and all throughout, even as far as Washington, D.C. So real quickly, Hollywood came calling to the Bronx. They reached out to my grandmother and said, Dr. Evelina Antonetty, we'd like to use your spaces, your buildings for this movie, and we need a place for Paul Newman to lay down his head in between all these movie shoots. And she was like, fine, what's in it for us? Oh, we're going to hire 300 people from the community, and we're going to do this and X, Y, and Z. She's like, fantastic, jobs for the community. Paul Newman's going to, known as a radical, back then, a liberal back then. Sure, he can come lay down.
He says it in the movie. He even says it in the movie, He says, they think I'm a liberal.
So she tells Hollywood, send me the script. And she reads the script, and she's like, and then she starts making phone calls to these ex-Young Lords, ex-Black Panthers, and all these people, and passing the script along, and she sends it back to Hollywood. Unacceptable. My people are being demonized and looked down at, and they revised the script. They must have sent her 6 revisions, and she said no. And through her connections, she formed a committee called CAFA, C-A-F-A, Committee Against Fort Apache, which included Ulis Torres, Richie Torres, from the Young Lords, and a handful of, community activists. And that was it. We were demonstrating at every film set, every photo shoot, everything that was going on in the city. And to make a long story short, the producers came and met with her and tried to smooth her up and butter her up, and, even made a stupid comment like, we're not racists, I eat rice and beans. And she's like, and, if you look at the movie today, there's a disclaimer in the beginning of the movie that says this movie does not intend to insult or invade the hardworking men and women of the South Bronx, other than who they are. And that was a huge, huge win, especially in 1981. When,
Right.
you don't, very rarely does a community activist group get to go up against Hollywood.
Right. Right.
And it was a huge win for my grandmother and Kafa at the time.
Yeah. Well, they didn't call her the Hell Lady of the Bronx for no reason.
It's true. That's true.
Oh my gosh. This is exciting. Just even hearing it from, your voice, right? From you, being her grandson, and actually capturing some of this, right? Because you even have an image of Paul Newman. And how old were you then, if you don't mind sharing?
So
did you even know what was really going on at that time?
So that image of Paul Newman is taken around the corner from my high school, South Bronx High School, St. Anne's Avenue in Westchester. And I just happened to cut class that day. And I walked around with a camera. And I saw them filming, with Paul Newman. And I walked onto the movie set and I'm taking pictures like I'm the set photographer and this, that, and the other, until Paul Newman gives me this, who the F are you and why are you on my movie set? I get chased off by, a staff member. But it was such an iconic shot. It
is, but you never answered my question, Joe. I said, how old were you?
Oh, okay. 17.
17. Okay, 17. So you were a teeny bopper over there acting like you're.
Yeah. And actually, that's the first picture I ever had published in a publication. The New York Post published that picture, paid me $25. But the best thing about that publication was that it said photo by Joey Dean.
Well, congratulations on that.
Yeah.
And that was the first of many, because you're archived at Cornell with thousands and thousands of Joe Conzo images that actually depict our history, our urban history, which is really what I'm so proud of the most, is that it matters. Right? No, thank you. And so before we run out of time, Elena, let's just talk really quickly about the panel structure and what that looks like.
So we're going to start in the morning with George Stonefish, who's a Native American elder, who's going to give a land acknowledgement, and then a presentation. And then we're going to have the first panel with Dr. Charles Venator Santiago, who is a specialist on the sort of Puerto Rican sovereignty and colonialism issues, and can talk about how Puerto Rico has been sort of trying to get its independence from the United States in Congress, using similar ideas and perspectives that Native Americans have been trying to use to get their sovereignty as well. Also on that panel will be Native American writer David Martin and artist Nadima Agard, who put together 15 years ago an exhibit at Ulstos on this exact issue, but using all indigenous artists to look at their perspective of Fort Apache, whether it's Fort Apache out west or Fort Apache, the Bronx. And then that second panel will be Joe and Lourdes Torres, who are part of CAFA, to talk about that, specifically the resistance and the protests around the film. And then we'll end the day with Bobby Sanabria and his band, one of the incarnations of his ensembles, Albure, going to give a tribute to Jerry Gonzalez's Fort Apache band, because Jerry Gonzalez was one of the musicians. Him and Andy and his brother, they were the musicians that would play at the protests, like they had people to come to the protests, and they were part of CAFA to get people to join in and what was going on. And then in an interview years ago, Jerry Gonzalez said that the reason he named his band the Fort Apache Band was to show the world that something good comes from the Bronx. It's not just the movie shows. So I always thought, like, if he said that, I don't know if it's part of the mythology, but that's what he said in this interview. So I was like, okay, so he was making a point by naming his band that, because him and Andy were not from the Fort Apache neighborhood, what we know as Fort Apache. They're from up north in the Bronx. So by having the band there too and giving tribute to them, we're also honoring the role that arts play in resistance. And us as the Bronx Music Heritage Center, we know that arts and culture also are part of, have a large part to play in our communities and in resistance. So so we want to include that in there as well. Wonderful. And that's all on September 17th, noon to 3:30 at our Bronx Music Heritage Center space will be the panels. At 5 o'clock at our outdoor venue, the Bronx Music Hall Plaza, will be the concert.
Wonderful, wonderful. And Joe, you last words on how you're taking in this huge celebration of your grandma.
It's overwhelming. It's overwhelming, you know, to know that she's been gone close to 40 years, you know, and we'll be celebrating her 100th birthday with a week long of events, you know, from the Bronx Music Heritage Center to Pregones to Hostos to even Puerto Rico and all these different venues and so many people coming together. It's humbling. It's humbling for me as her oldest grandson, her primer dolor, so to speak. But you know, listen, she encouraged me in photography. You know, she supported my photography, so I owe her a lot to continue documenting the Bronx and the struggle that we still continue to have today. And it's just amazing how so many people love her. You know, I'm in my own little world. That's my grandmother, my titi. I love her. But to know that thousands of people and her legacy is just unbreakable is pretty humbling.
It's lovely. It's lovely to see the impact she's having this year on a broader level. I mean, she deserved it a long time ago, right? Beyond her physical existence. But the celebration that's being put together this year is really phenomenal. And so one last thing before we go, because they're wrapping me really hard. What is your favorite dice that she left you with?
We are all born with a PhD, and our PhD is in poverty, hunger, and determination. Each and every one of us, everybody watching you on this channel, we are born with a PhD.
Those are the wise words of Dr. Evelina Antonetty.
And no hay mal que por bien no venga.
Okay, that's a mama. That's a abuela thing all over. Thank you both. Thank you, Elena Martinez, Joe Conzo Jr. Once again, the Bronx Music Heritage Center's gonna be having a Fort Apache viewing and panel that's taking place at the Bronx Music Heritage Center, which is located at 1303 Louis 9 Boulevard in the Bronx. That's happening on Saturday, September 17th. It begins at 12, I believe. Is it at 12 that it begins? It goes from 12 to 3. And then the Fort Apache concert takes place at 7?
5.
At 5. That's at 5. And once again, you can always visit Evelina100.org for all the events that are taking place in her honor and the specifics on this one that we were just discussing. So we do have to take a quick break, but when we return, we're going to talk about the many stylish events happening at this year's Bronx Fashion Week. Don't go anywhere. Hey everyone, welcome back. So National Latinx Heritage Month is celebrated every year between September 15th through October 15th. Our next guest is hosting some of New York City's leading fashion events in honor of it, encouraging and empowering through diversity and inclusivity in fashion while providing real-time business opportunities to local, emerging, and established designers to showcase their skills and abilities in an industry that isn't often so accessible. Here to discuss more, we welcome Bronx Fashion Week founder and CEO, Flora Montes. Hi, Flora.
Hey, Rhina, how are you? Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I'm so excited to see your face, and I'm so proud of you. On a personal note, I mean, you know, we're all community builders, right? And so I remember when you first started Bronx Fashion Week to where it's at now, it's really impressive. And so I want to congratulate you on your consistency and your elevation, because it's really phenomenal to see how you've been able to design it has its own personality. So let's talk about what the journey's been like thus far.
It's been an amazing journey, and you're right, it does have its own flair and its own place in fashion. You know, I think when I started, I had a certain mindset, and then as we've evolved And with the pandemic and coming back, I learned so much and what fashion really is. And I have an amazing group of people behind me that help build this and elevate this. And they're all Bronxites, they're all from the community. And that's what makes, I believe it makes us special amongst the fashion greats. I really do.
Well, one of the things that I will say that stands out for the most is where you have these fashion shows and the diversity within the fashion styles, as well as the models. So it's really a diversity and inclusivity in reality, right? Not because it's a trending statement that's floating around the media right now.
No, and you're absolutely right. It's about the diversity and the inclusivity that we do provide that platform for. And we've been doing it for 10 years, but it wasn't until it became, like you said, trendy that people started noticing. But we've had models, Bronx models. I've had models as far as London, and I'm honored. It blows me away when I hear that. We have people that drive from Ohio for Bronx Fashion Week. And I really didn't realize the impact we made until this year, after the pandemic, that I really got to sit down and I was like, wow, we've made such a huge impact that I'm so grateful for. So grateful.
So let's really quickly share with our viewers just a little quick, because we don't have that much time, of the different styles that you've been able to showcase and how you were able to sustain during the pandemic and where you're at now, because everything is back in person. So
right. So during the pandemic, we all shut down. But prior to that, we were doing couture styles, avant-garde. We were working with local designers that really were starting from scratch and had no idea how to start a business or how to be on a runway. So we came from that to the pandemic, that we came to a complete halt. And I really was questioning and reflecting on what our future held. I did work on a COVID unit too, so it gave me some perspective of what was going on in the world. And so then to come back, through the support of my children and the models and people calling me during the pandemic, when are you guys coming back? It changed the way I thought of how we were going to come back. So now we're back, and it's about community. It's about culture. It's about sustainability. And it's about being responsible to the community that we're serving and that we live in and that I grew up and was raised in. And that's what makes it now more important than ever to keep building this legacy that I started 10 years ago.
I know it's amazing, right? When you say 10 years ago, brava, Flora.
Oh, I know it does. And fashion is more than fabric. I think that's the saying that's always going to be with me. Fashion is more than fabric, and it's true that beyond every runway there's a stitch, and we are built on stories. We're built on those dreams. When I see those kids on that runway and they come to a casting with torn t-shirts and worn sneakers, and they had the gumption to, and the dream to get up and be there. Yeah. And I feel responsible for them. And I want to make their dreams come true. I really do. I really do.
And so on that note, let's talk about some of the partnerships. I mean, you've been working with some really reputable, not only organizations, what would we consider Macy's? Macy's is what, a merchant? Not necessarily. That's not the proper language. But I'm saying, like, in your world, in the fashion world.
I mean, I do call them designers because they have designers that work with them within their stores. So I do call them designers, and some of them are small businesses or family-run businesses, like Larry Franco, Boulevard Menswear, that goes all around the world, finding different looks to bring back to the Bronx. Stores like you said, like Macy's, Victoria's Secrets, or other companies that are looking to rebrand and rechange and because of the pandemic and what everyone else has gone through, some of the more important ones, that I've had long-term relationships. We've done Macy's, we've done JCPenney, we've worked with another Ashley Stewart, the plus size community. We work with them too. And I'm definitely from, curvy, and I have those curves. I don't even like the word plus size. I like the curvy, woman with curves, real woman, right?
Yeah, well, I'm in the same boat, so I get it. Somos Latina, that's the way we come.
the Latina thing, yes.
Carnisura, así se llama. But it's important that it's also represented through wardrobe, through models, through exactly what you're sending out as a message, through the diversity, right? In it being inviting, because that's really what it's about. It's kind of like, well, is everyone invited? And even the places you actually have these fashion shows. I mean, you create runways at the mall.
We've done the Mall of Bay Plaza, but we've also done the Bronx Museum. Like you said, we've done Andrew Friedman. We've done the High Bridge, that highway that connects to Manhattan. We've done, Boricua College. We've been at Mercy College. We've been pretty much all over the Bronx, the Bronx County Courthouse. It's been amazing. It has been amazing.
That being said, in all these places that you mentioned, like, how do you decide where these fashion shows are going to happen? Like, is that something that's decided in advance, or do they kind of morph themselves into their locations?
They morph themselves into these locations, and people reach out to us because of the work that we've done. And then a lot of the places, I look for the history, the architectural structures and the way the buildings look. And that's how basically we find things. And like, for example, morphing the library center that we're going to be in, for the first time this year. We are the first independent brand going into a library in the Bronx. It'll be the first fashion show. And they reached out to us. And, I love to read, right? It's the way the universe works. I love to read. I've always loved writing, as you well know, because we're in that same community. And to have the library reach out was like, okay, I get this. Yes, this is the next spot for us, definitely.
I love it. And we thank you for bringing it here to us on Open, sharing with our viewers, Flora Montes, who is innovating fashion, right? Because fashion isn't only fabric. Is that your slogan? What's the slogan?
Yeah, fashion is more fabric. Yep, definitely.
Once again, that is Flora Montes, Bronx Fashion Week founder and CEO, where her slogan and her means and her motivation is fashion is more than fabric. All right, once again, you guys, Bronx Fashion Week Food and Fun is set to take place September 10th, 3 p.m. at the Mall at Bay Plaza, located at 200 Baychester Avenue. And the evening of couture celebrating National Latinx Heritage Bronx Fashion is happening September 17th from 5 to 7 p.m. And that one is located at the Bronx Library Center, located at 310 East Kingsbridge Road. For more information, visit BronxFashionWeek.com. All right, everyone, stay tuned. Bobby C's a weekly sports roundup. It's coming up next.
Our guest this morning in the Sports Corner is a longtime friend, someone that I've known for a very long time when it comes to the game of basketball, and she's making her second appearance at Manhattan College in Riverdale, and we wanted to welcome her back, even though I don't think I've ever called you Coach Marsh, Sammy. I don't know if that's ever come up. I mean, for me, over the years, you've either been Sammy, Sam, Ball Girl, Samara, but never Coach Marsh.
No, I don't think so either, Bobby. And today I got caught in the moment because I couldn't remember your last name. It took me a second.
It's okay. It's a tough one to say. It's a lot easier to just go with Bobby C. So I appreciate you taking some time with us here this morning. Congratulations on coming back to Manhattan. I'm excited to see you there. Thank you. I am too. This second time around actually is really personal, and it hit close to home now that I'm back in the Bronx and coaching. The MAC is an excellent league. And so I'm really enjoying this first 2 months on the job.
You know, Sam, I think it's interesting because, you know, being a Bronx native, I think it's always great when you could say that you're getting a chance to come home and have an impact in your community. And, you know, for you, someone that loves the game of basketball, I mean, so many times we've spent so many years having so many conversations about different levels of the game, whether it's the NBA, the WNBA, college basketball. And I know how much you love the game. You're a communications major, so it's also great to have you on the show because I know how much you love to talk the game. But I feel like these days your whole life is spent recruiting. That's a big part of being the new assistant coach at Manhattan and even in the former positions that you've had in different places. So tell me a little bit about the recruiting aspect and specifically what it's like to be recruiting again for your hometown Manhattan Jaspers.
I think for me, it's truly awesome to be able to say that I played at a Bronx high school, went to school in the New York metropolitan area, and then now I can help another young talent come to school in the same area or even from the same borough. We have a Bronx side on our roster, which is always awesome. So I love when that's a part of the deal and that comes with it. And then as a recruiter, I'm always constantly looking for new and upcoming talent from around the 5 boroughs, but particularly keeping an eye on Bronx talent. There's also international recruiting and there's also transfer portal recruiting, which to me opens up even more doors to meet more talent, more players, and to bring some local players back home.
So, Coach, when you had your first stint at Manhattan, actually pretty cool stat here. It was the 4th largest turnaround for that women's basketball program in that first stint. And you recruited a player at the time that was in the top 100 in the ESPN rankings, which might not seem like a big deal, but when you're talking about, you know, metro area basketball and trying to have some of these local teams, you know, continue to raise the profile, anytime you can have that top 100, top 50 player, it's an impactful player. So speak specifically about recruiting at that time and what has changed ever since.
Well, you want to know something? It was a glimpse into the future. That player was actually a transfer. So to now see that the transfer portal has become such a huge part of the recruiting process, there were coaches and programs dipping into transfers back then, just in a different way. You had to have permission to contact from the previous school. Most of the time, the player was reaching out to you because they had a previous relationship or you recruited them before they went to their previous school. But I think it's grand to be a part of that, to say that player made an impact after joining the program and then watching them going on and graduate. I think growth for me is the best part of the entire process, the growth of the players and then my own individual growth.
And Sam, your journey pretty much starts out at your alma mater, St. Peter's, like we mentioned, communications major, and then you end up coaching for your alma mater. And that's pretty much how, you know, we make the leap in terms of the college and coaching ranks. And you've had a lot of stops in a lot of different places. It seems like you've had an impact in every single place that you've been. So that's got to feel good.
Yes, it does, Bobby. I can't deny I have memories from every single place. And nowadays, when I see a photograph or a social media post, the memories come flooding back. I can say now I've coached long enough that athletes are getting married now or becoming coaches themselves. So this is kind of a funny time warp I'm in right now.
So, all right, so let's kind of backtrack a little bit and do like almost like a recap here of the resume. So we're at St. Peter's and it ends up leading to, I mean, to me, this might have been the first place that you and I intersected in terms of the college ranks, because I get a chance to work with you as the former voice of the Monroe Mustangs Got a chance to work with you at Monroe, which, of course, for our fans at home, you have locations in the Bronx, but also a campus in nearby New Rochelle, which is not far from the BX. And that program goes on to have a tremendous amount of success, both the men and women at the time, but you were coaching on the women's side. And just kind of, we speak about stats before. The Mustangs, under your mentorship at the time, 2 national championships, MVPs, most valuable players, getting to the championship games, big deal. 4 All-Americans, 4 Region 15 Players of the Year, 3 NJAC Top 40 All-Stars, and an academic All-America honor at the time. So in all, Sam, 14 players ended up signing with NCAA Division I programs. Is that the right stat? That's what I had it marked down as, 14 players.
Yes. And I can even give you an even better stat. The first national championship team, 2010, 2011, at the D2 level, NJCAA, all of those players were from the New York area. They were either from the PSAL or the CHSAA. So they were all 5 boroughs players, which was truly special to me. So there were kids from the Bronx on that team as well. Well, they're young women now. So, but that was an amazing team to be a part of.
Yeah, of course.
My first year on staff, and we run the table, we go the distance, and then we ended up repeating the very next season. So that was definitely something I'll never forget.
Yeah, definitely some great moments. I mean, some great players, some great championship games. And, for you, it ends up being part, like I said, of your legacy now, I would say, coaching and being here in the Bronx and making moves, because now we go from Monroe and then later on stops at LIU Brooklyn, where you've had an impact here in the New York City area. And then, of course, after that, Delaware State, and most recently Wagner.
Yes. I think I pretty much lived in every area code or coached in every area code. I might have one borough left to hit before I could say I've done it all. But in that time, I've got to work with some amazing people as far as the head coaches I worked for and the assistant coaches, my fellow colleagues. I've experienced a tremendous growth. I can't tell you how much better I am as a leader, and a mentor, and as well as on the sidelines with the clipboard and growth in that area. I think that all speaks to my entire body of work around the 5 boroughs and with my history in basketball. I've been blessed. I've been around so many good players, going back to my father's, one of his best friends being Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and my dad being a Power Memorial graduate. So I go from that as a kid, and then my experience with Hoops in the Sun, and then my college coaching career. I can say I've seen a lot of basketball and a lot of great talent. So I have fun in this. I'm like a kid. I can't grow up.
One of the things that you picked up for your resume during these last few years is being part of Coaches for Change organization. Talk a little bit about what that has meant to you and what kind of impact you've been able to make there.
So I was actually invited into Coaches for Change by one of the board members, a former Manhattan College men's coaching player, men's coaching side, Rasheed Davis. So that for me was a way for me to give beyond the game, as you expressed. I think to me, basketball is the easiest part of what I do. I think helping young men and young women grow, have a voice, be able to be successful in their adult life. To me, that's an even greater reward. When you watch a player go from the recruiting stage, you coach them, you mentor them, and then they go into the world to live on their own and start their own family. I think one of the best things I can hold on to, and one of the things I do hold on to as a coach, is that they're making it and they know what to do. They know how to live. And they can always, my phone is open. They can always call and reach back to see if they need anything. But again, going to join Coaches for Change was for me to be able to connect with even more coaches, to grow as mentors and leaders, and as well as connect even better and stronger with the players that we were coaching. I think the landscape politically lately has been very tumultuous. So it's important that we're able to discuss with our athletes and have an understanding of what's actually happening in the world and how each of us can make an impact individually.
That was part 1 of our interview with Coach Marsh from the Manhattan Jaspers and women's basketball. Tune in next Friday for part 2.
Welcome back to Open Hybrid. Our next guest, our last guest actually, is a spoken word artist and educational entrepreneur with more than 5 years of experience as a teaching artist. She explores many artistic mediums in the name of healing and creating, and she's the owner of Poetic Black Gurl LLC, a Black woman-owned business that specializes in personal development with services and creative workshops centered on mental health and art. Poetic Black Gurl is dedicated to offering creative outlets for individuals to begin or continue their journey of healing and self-expression. Here to share more spoken word artist, educational entrepreneur, and Poetic Black Gurl owner, Andrea Augustus. Hello, hello.
Hey y'all, how y'all doing? I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me today.
No, I'm excited to dive into this conversation with you. Just even in your introduction, it says a lot, right? Because you already know purpose. You're operating from a purposeful foundation of like, you know what? I'm driven by raising up the Black voice. I'm driven by bringing mental health awareness into the forefront. I'm raised up by, you're fired up, I should say, by making sure that art is the, I guess, the medium in which it's being brought into this light. And so how did you get there?
Yeah, of course. Well, I guess teaching people how to tap into the arts came from me having a time when I was just so drained and so depleted from my own mental issues and things that I was going through that I felt like I had nothing to tap into. And it was so strange. Because I come from a strong educational background. I always tell people like school was very, very, easy. It came to me easy until I got to college, right? Once I got to college, it just kind of knocked me out. And I didn't really feel like I fit. I didn't really feel like
What happened? What made you feel like you didn't fit? Is that your state of mind, or is that the circumstance in which the environment loaned itself to?
Right. I would say a little bit of both. So individually, I was going through some depression and anxiety from being away from home for the first time. I was a first generation college student on my mom's side. So I didn't really know how to, I guess, easily adapt to that environment. So there was a lot of isolation because I'm used to my family and being around my family. And here I was not even with my friends. Like my high school friends all went to different schools. And in addition to not being around my friends, like it was a private college where there were a lot of nuns and also a lot of Caucasian people. And then there was me trying to fit in the Black Student Union, but also going through all of my emotional things. So I really ended up like tapping into art. If you were to see my college dorm room, it looked like a museum exhibit. I had art all over my walls. I was like one of the only people to have like a decorative fish tank. It just like pouring into art was a really great way for me to express myself. And although art is not traditional therapy where somebody sits you down and gives you a strategy to work through things, as someone who like comes from a poorer background where I didn't really know about therapy, if I can afford it, and it's stigmatized. Being able
but before you even continue, I want to know, were you an artist already, or is that something that just came from you?
Yeah, so I've always been an artist. I've always
like
been
visual artist, right? But I mean, art comes in different forms, right? And I always say one feeds the other. But visual, it takes something to really, explore and really release from that perspective.
Yeah, definitely.
Have you always done that since you were young?
Yeah, so I was like in the 3rd grade or 5th grade, like in the fashion club. I remember Miss White. And Miss White would encourage me to make them fashion designs. She's like, no.
Shout out to Miss White, who's getting shouted out.
Shout out. But also like I explored different mediums. So in addition to being like a visual artist, like early on, I realized I really like to read and write. I haven't always been so outspoken. I used to, find my conversations in books and in with my teachers. Really, I always really like giving presentations and things like that. So tapping into the art of speaking as a spoken word poet was something that I really stepped into when I was in high school with my senior project. That was my first time ever really performing it. And it naturally came back when I was going through tough situations because the performance was so therapeutic. Writing was so therapeutic. Seeing people's reactions to me was so like satisfying as this little Black girl who feels like, you know, I'm kind of mousy. I'm always in the book. I'm really into education. Nobody really is listening to what I'm saying. To be able to get up on a stage in front of people and just have them listen.
Right. So we jumped already to your performance art, which is fine. It's all intriguing and interesting. But I still want to know what happened when you were at private college and the art that you said that your dorm room was full of, and whether or not, you know, that's where you found your calling, because prior to getting on air, you said you didn't even finish college. You quit.
Yeah, definitely. So I was in university, going through all of those mental health issues, and a really toxic relationship. My parents were telling me that they were getting split up, and it was just so much going on. And I was always used to being in an art class when I was in New York public schools. They're pretty good at giving you at least one art class, but in this private university where I'm studying psychology, all my classes were like core classes. So in order for me to release, I had to do something. And that's when I started doing the art, but still it was very overwhelming for me. I was
right, because you were navigating it on your own, independently, by yourself, without that support system that you're used to having, right? So no, this is all interesting. Keep going.
Yeah. So then I ended up actually dropping out of school. Terrible just relationship, so much manipulation, so much going on with nobody telling me, like, you know, hey, this is not a good idea. It's not a good idea for you to be in this relationship. So I just kind of ran. I ran away from school. I ran away from what I felt like I was experiencing there. And I moved back home, and I felt like I just felt so bad. I kept seeing all my friends on Instagram, and they're scrolling, and they're like, yay, you know, I'm doing great in my first year of university. And I'm like, well, I'm home and I'm hosting at different restaurants in New York City. And, you know, I just felt crappy. So in order for me to like work through the crappiness of feeling just not good enough, not like I was being successful in the way that my parents and that I saw
according to somebody else's expectations.
You know, I was experiencing all that. So I'm like, what can I do? And it always comes back to art and poetry for me. So I started writing really impactful pieces about how I was feeling. I started spilling all the tea on my relationship. I started spilling all the tea on how I felt suicidal. I started spilling all the tea on how anxious I was feeling. And then I sat down and really tapped back into that art of performance. So then it went from writing it to, all right, I'm going to memorize this and I'm going to share this and see who can relate. I'm going to find my people, because my people, they weren't at university with me too much. And my
right. You were like, yeah,
I didn't like that.
I wasn't there with the nuns.
Yeah. So that's kind of how that got birthed. Out of a really like challenging educational experience, I started, you know, pursuing poetry again, and that led me to the path of going back to school to study art education and art therapy, because I was already using art as my own therapy, and I was like, you know, I really want to be trained and get more information in order to lead other individuals who may be struggling down this path of creating their own art in order to heal and address some of those traumas in an accessible way. Because again, not everybody has insurance, okay? And
right.
If you do have insurance, and I know me, I want a therapist that I feel like I can relate to. So if you have insurance, but the only therapists that are in network are like also people that's not your people and in your community, sometimes you want to figure out how you could do it for yourself. So that's something I got really passionate about in school. So I was studying art education, I was studying art therapy. It was bomb. And then my school went bankrupt and shut down.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, universe, what are you trying to do? So at that point, I you know, I was already pursuing the art thing. I was already pursuing the art therapy thing. So I had this level of resilience where I knew that when things started to get tough for me, the best way for me to cope was to lean into my community of people and go ahead and perform poetry, really be vulnerable and tell people what I was going through, and then just move through it, like grow through it, like push through it in order to get where I want to go. So I went back to school, to Lehman College, to study art education. We love a CUNY. I'm not gonna lie, it's affordable. They give you what you need, and it was really great. And then the pandemic happened.
Oh my goodness, this is like a story that just never ends. And you know we're gonna be running. No, but I do want to say, because we're running out of time and we have to get to Poetic Black Gurl, right? Yeah. So we can talk about the pandemic happening, and then you doing classes virtually? I hope.
You know, I try to do the whole virtual class thing, right? I try to do the virtual class, but I'm really an in-person, let me feel your spirit type. So I then was like, I'm going to be an educator in the way that makes sense for me. And the way that made sense was for me to organize my independent LLC and to create art and therapeutic programs, specifically the Healing with Arts programs, which I offer to nonprofits and schools to help students work through their emotional challenges using art. But I was like, I'm going to do it. I don't need permission. I already know enough. I've already been through enough. I know I can help people. When I get on stage, people dig it. They like it. They ask me how to do it. I'm just going to do it. So I just did it. And I've just been doing it since. And I really have been enjoying the process of working with students independently and, you know, just honing my craft as a spoken word artist, hearing the stories that students make and hearing them be vulnerable as they talk about their fears and in high school and as they're going to college, and just being able to be still in their age range, right? And saying, girl, I know, but I promise you it gets better. And I could help you express yourself if that's something that you feel you need right now. So it's been pretty rewarding.
Oh my gosh. Well, you bring a really big smile to my face. Thank just you. So you know.
Thank you too.
Journey we just took, and the conclusion of like, you know what, I just gave myself permission to do it, because at the end of the day, you come with your own life experience. And not only that, and I'm going to leave it on this note because we got to throw to your performance, which you're going to give us a taste of what we're talking about, which is kind of like a blend of like spoken word with motivational speaking. Yeah. But at the end of the day, and this is my favorite phrase to use, is you're operating with the intention of leaving things better than you found them. Yes. Brava, Andrea. Yes. All right, Andrea, we got to take a quick break, and you guys don't go anywhere, because when we return, Andrea Augustus is going to perform for us. So you don't want to miss that. Hey everyone, welcome back. Here now to perform Tired. Let's give it up for Andrea Augustus.
Didn't want to sit down and write this. Really sitting here trying to fight this feeling that I feel when innocent people of color are killed. I am tired. I am tired of people saying it isn't about race when clearly it's about race. I am tired. I am tired of people choosing to be rude and rooted in willful ignorance. I am tired. I am tired of white people insisting that all lives matter as they stand on top of deceased Black bodies. I am tired. I am tired of Black and brown boys, girls, men, and women dead and on t-shirts. I am tired. I am tired of misguided police officers with their knees on our necks. I am tired. I am tired of politicians policing my Black female body. I am tired. I am tired of having to get up and go back to work, get back to work. I'm sorry, but that sounded familiar. Get back to work. I'm sorry, but I'm feeling like I'm on a plantation with massa over my shoulder, shouting racial epithets, and I'm forced to take it because if I die, my brothers will miss me and we ain't got no mama or daddy. Why does this feel familiar? Why is this still familiar? I thought my ancestors paid their dues. Why does this feel familiar? I thought my ancestors paid their dues. Why is this still familiar? And then I realized I'm still waiting on my 40 acres and my mule.
Wow. That was Tired by Andrea Augustus. Deep, very deep. All right, you guys, for more information on Andrea, you can check her out at andreaaugustus.com and on IG at Poetic Black Gurl. That is our show today, mi gente. Thanks to all our guests for coming through, and to you, our viewers, for tuning in. If you missed any part of the show, you can check out the recablecast tonight and 24 hours a day at BronxNet.tv. I'm Rhina Valentin, and from all of us here at Open, may the universe provide paz, prosperity, y amor. Adios.